One of the most exciting days of the entire year has arrived, the Emmy nominations day. The nomination leaders are The Crown and The Mandalorian with 24 nominations apiece, followed by WandaVision with 23 nominations and The Handmaid's Tale with 21. I'm Luca Giliberti, and I am joined today by the best of the best, my fellow contributors, Charlie Bright, Sam Eckmann, and Kevin Jacobsen, to make sense of these crazy, wild nominations. Let's start with some of the positive first. Kevin, I'll go to you first. What were some of the highlights of this morning? Which nominations made you happiest? And what were some of the biggest pleasant surprises to you? I mean, I know you're a Pose fan, so it must have been a great morning for you.
That is exactly where I was going to start. MJ Rodriguez, I screamed when she got a nomination finally for lead actress for the final season of Pose, third and final season. You know, as someone who's watched and loved that show from the beginning, just watching her grow as an actress over that time, and her now becoming the first trans actor nominated for a lead category it's just huge. And that goes for Pose in general, you know, coming on strong with 9 nominations, the most it's ever gotten. And it, you know, because it dropped out of drama series last year. I was wondering if they were just going to be like, well, we liked its first season, but we're kind of like not as into it in the future seasons. But yeah, it came on very strong here, you know, with, I think it also got directing and writing nominations for the first time. So, you know, back in drama series. So that was very, very happy about that. One other show I was just happy about was just Hacks, because that's a show that I very recently have watched and loved. And I was curious if that was even going to register as much as it did, because it feels like it came out so late in the eligibility season. There wasn't a huge amount of hype going into the show, but people really discovered it and loved it. And it got 15 nominations, which is huge for a first season. Obviously, Ted Lasso got 20. We sort of expected that to do well, but for Hacks to really emerge in that huge way was very exciting to me. And I don't think it's really a contest anymore that Jean Smart will probably be winning that Emmy.
Oh, most definitely. Sam, what about you? I know you're a Mandalorian fan, so this must have been a great morning for you too.
It was a great morning for me. And Kevin, I screamed out loud when I saw MJ get that nomination. Yeah. I've been waiting for that for a long time too. But I was very happy with The Mandalorian getting in at, you know, sort of improved on its acting tally from the previous year. And also WandaVision was really probably the TV event of the year of this season for me. And it holds a very special place in my heart. I think it's expertly done. And I was preparing myself for the Emmys to sort of snub their nose up and, you know, dismiss the MCU here, despite what I think to be an incredible show. But they really went just full throttle for WandaVision, and it was getting in everywhere. It would have been nice if like Tiana Paris could have joined Catherine Hahn, but I was very happy that it was just embraced across the board and no one was left out. So that was the big sigh of relief for me when they really showered that with love.
Absolutely. And Charlie, what about you?
You know, I think a lot of people, we were expecting Ted Lasso to do well, but the way the strength that it has shown with these nominations, I mean, 4 supporting actors getting in to that race, that was a really heartening thing for me. I really found that to be very a wonderful like show of strength for the show. Just getting nominated all over the place, does every single one of them, I think, completely well-deserved. And also in anticipation of the second season, which I can't wait for. I will say one of my other favorite things, I was worried that I May Destroy You could possibly, that for some reason it wouldn't hit with the right people on the for the nominations. And I'm very, very happy that it got in all the places where you would want it to, including supporting actor, which I thought was a great nomination as well. And also, I gotta say, I absolutely loved 6 nominations for, I think, one of the, probably one of the artistic achievements of the year, Bo Burnham's Inside. getting 6 nominations. I think Bo is the one who's nominated for every single one of them, and that was something I think, like a lot of people who saw it, I was not expecting how the impact that it had, and so to see it get recognized in all those areas, I found really, really encouraging.
Yeah, and I just have to agree with everyone. I think the MJ Rodriguez nomination is absolutely wonderful. We've been waiting for it for 3 years, and it's nice to finally see her break through. She really fought for this nomination. They really campaigned, and it's really just wonderful to see it pay off. And you know, the way in which the show ended and the way Blanca's character arc ended, I think this is a beautiful nomination. I'm so happy for her. Everyone who knows me knows I'm a Handmaid's Tale stan, so the fact that it came roaring back with 21 nominations put a huge smile on my face to see a lot of previously unrecognized talent like Madeline Brewer and O.T. Fagbenley, to see them finally get nominated. Max Minghella was a pleasant surprise. I'm very happy McKenna Grace got into guest actress. I was very worried about her because I just wasn't sure whether they had watched this season. And if you didn't watch this season, you wouldn't realize what amazing work she did on it. And yeah, I'm just very happy to see that back in the running. I hope Elizabeth Moss can give Emma Corrin a run for her money in Best Actress, because she gave the performance of the year, in my opinion. I am also happy for Evan Peters to finally get nominated for his first Emmy. We've been waiting for this nomination since the early installments of American Horror Story. And I'm glad that Mare of Easttown finally took him over the finish line. And again, another show, Mare of Easttown exploded with 16 nominations. It got everything it needed to get, and I'm so excited to see that do so well. I already sort of asked this in the first question, but let's dig into it a bit more. What were some of the biggest shockers? What made your jaw drop to the floor? Let's start with you, Sam, first.
Well, I'm gonna spark a reaction from someone, but I was very surprised that Hamilton got 7 acting nominations, I believe. It's just like, we knew they were gonna nominate it in its main category, but you always are like, well, if a recorded stage performance is competing, are they going to go for these acting performances, which are great, but they were created for stage originally, and they were honored a while back with the Tony. So there's always a question of if that's going to happen. And they used to do that all the time, like back when we used to have more of these recordings that competed at the Emmys, like the Sweeney Todd classic, where George Hearn won an Emmy for that. But they haven't really gotten on board with this recently. And I couldn't believe that, like, even the supporting actor, they went really deep with, you know, Anthony Ramos, who wasn't predicted by, I don't know anyone who was predicting him, but he did have In the Heights come out recently, so maybe that helped him. That was a huge shock. And I think, you know, the biggest takeaway I had was that you really have to be a massive water cooler success event series to get in, because with very few exceptions, they did not branch out all that much. We are living in this tidal wave of content. And I think the reaction is, instead of, you know, branching out and watching all these things, people don't have time. They say, oh, there's too much, and they're just watching the shows they like. And as we see, you know, with Handmaid's Tale has like 4 supporting actresses, and The Crown, and they just keep checking off these people in the categories. Ted Lasso's dominating supporting actor. So I don't know what the solution there is to get them to watch more of the shows, but I hope that in the future they can find a fix for that, because it's very clear they have their favorites and they're sticking to it. The hardest job for getting an Emmy nomination is to have people watch your show, I think.
Absolutely. And Charlie, let's go right to you.
Was Hamilton nominated? I didn't see that. I had my blinders on for that. I think probably my biggest shock was I have to go into the limited series category for this, and that was the way that The Good Lord Bird did not perform, especially not getting anything for Ethan Hawke. Only getting the 1 nomination, I think, was for main title design. You said, Kevin?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that just blew me away, because it was so well reviewed. And I thought Ethan Hawke would, at least Ethan Hawke is someone who I thought had enough goodwill within acting circles that even if the program didn't do as well, that he would fare well here, but unfortunately he didn't, and I'm still trying to wrap my head around that one.
Absolutely. Kevin, what about you?
Emily in Paris.
Yeah, okay, I forgot about that one.
No one's mentioned it yet.
Yeah, I've watched the show. It's very cute, and I forgot about it when it was over, and it was like, that's fine. Yeah. And so that's why I'm sort of surprised that it wasn't like just a Golden Globes show, that it really did extend all the way to voting just a month ago, that people still watched it and liked it enough to get it this series nom. And to sort of piggyback off of what Sam was saying, looking at the nomination haul for Emily in Paris versus some of those other shows like The Crown and The Handmaid's Tale, it's like Emily in Paris is just like on its own island here with just this nomination and a nomination for production design. Like Lily Collins wasn't nominated. That just kind of floored me, because again, I just didn't expect it to last as long as it did, the impact of that show. But a lot of people watched it. I think there's a possibility that they didn't know where to go with comedy series, with so many of the shows that they love not in contention or having ended, that they just kind of looked at the shows that they're like, technically I watched that, I'll vote for that. So
absolutely,
it was an event. Again, it had
was
several weeks of buzz, and
there were memes.
That's what it comes down to. Yeah.
Right. I think we can get into that in a second, but I
Can I just add one more that was a shock for me?
Of course, go ahead.
I will say I only recently started watching and finished the Kaminsky Method, and the nomination for Paul Reiser in supporting actor was really, I thought, a welcome surprise. He's really funny on that show, just for that awful ponytail alone. But I thought that was just a really wonderful, inspired nomination. I really like that.
But no nomination for Kathleen Turner. Where was that nomination?
Yeah, that was some,
Yeah.
It was definitely interesting to see some shows get more nominations than usual, but then we still had people miss out. And we can get into some of our takeaways in a second, but I do think viewership was incredibly important. And if you watched the show, that definitely benefited the show at these awards. I don't know if anyone's mentioned Adie Bryant for Shrill. That completely surprised me. I'm very happy for her. This is, for me, just a very surprising nomination. This is the third and final season. I just didn't expect her to be nominated now all of a sudden, but I'm very happy for her. And otherwise, all the others have been mentioned. Ethan Hawke missing, I just didn't expect it. I had him in first. I thought he was gonna win that category because it's one of the most difficult categories to predict. And I'm just surprised by how much that show underperformed. And again, I already mentioned it, but Handmaid's Tale, I had a feeling that it could do better this year because it aired at a better time and the season's reception was a bit better than the third season's, but I just didn't expect Emmy voters to finally recognize some of the people who've never been recognized. They usually don't do that, especially when a show is in its fourth season. So that completely surprised me. And the Mandalorian, the way it dominated in like the editing categories, and it shouldn't be a surprise given what the Mandalorian is and the type of show it is and how well it did last year in the technical categories, below the line categories, but still. But okay, we've talked enough now about the positive. Now let's get into some of our biggest disappointments. Charlie, let's start with you.
I feel like if I were to have a list of it, it would be like one of those scroll papers that just unfurls down and just goes out onto the highway outside my apartment. I think my first one is definitely I wasn't expecting it to like really do well, but really nothing for It's a Sin from HBO Max is just a travesty. It's so wonderful, beautifully emotional, and the thing that caught me off guard with it was how funny it was. And I was just, the writing that Russell T Davies brought to that was beautiful. I thought probably its best shot was a writing nomination. So to see, and also for Callum Scott Howells, who I think is I think the discovery of the season for me at least. To see that in there was so just to see him not nominated there, just oh man, that pisses me off. I know I said this before, but I'm really over this Hamilton stuff right now. I have really had, and I don't hate the show itself. I quite like the show, but I am so done with it. 5 years after it premiered on Broadway, and I'm still having to deal with predicting it and having to deal with people from it being nominated. I'm just done.
Sam, let's go to you next.
And also, I would have loved to have seen just one last one. I would have loved to have seen Our Cartoon President nominated for animated program. And also, what's with the Q documentary, the Q Into the Storm, the documentary all about QAnon, only getting one nomination, a deserved one for editing, but why it didn't get in anywhere else? And that was just, I thought that was the most fascinating, well-researched, interesting, timely documentary of the past year. And to see it get nothing was very disheartening, along with the documentary on Heaven's Gate. I thought that should have gotten in there as well.
Yeah, Sam.
Hamilton's not done with you, Charlie. It's not done with you. I echo the It's a Sin lamentations, and I do think even for lead actor, Ollie Alexander is proving to be an amazing actor. He's known as the lead singer of Years and Years, but he turns in a phenomenal performance. And it's a shame that was really skunked across the board, that show. I also have to, it's weird to complain about The Mandalorian because it did so well, but no Rosario Dawson as Ahsoka Tano. I think she had a great episode. She dominates the whole episode. She shows so much on her face. I think she really shows that she's evolved considerably as an actress in that performance, and was very deserving for that category. And I know they got 2 guest actors in, but I think Bill Burr, out of the contenders there, gave a really great performance and really charted a nice arc in his episode. You bought sort of the grief of this former stormtrooper more than anything they tried to do in the sequel trilogy, and he did it in one episode. I thought it was great. Those were sort of the acting ones. I'm also sad. This is a symptom of people not watching any other shows, but not a lot of people watch this, but The Nevers on HBO is actually quite good. And Laura Donnelly, if you haven't watched it, turns in one of the most incredible, mind-boggling performances you'll ever see in the season finale. I don't know how many people watch that because sadly, I think Joss Whedon is the creator, and his whole controversy kind of took a lot of wind out of the sails of that show, which is really a shame because it's phenomenal. And I hope somehow people will watch it and Laura Donnelly gets her due because she deserves more attention for it.
Yeah. And Kevin, I feel like we'll have some of the same, or share some of the same disappointments. So go ahead.
Yeah, I was really disappointed to not see any acting nominations for The Underground Railroad. That's a choice. It had a really great cast. Tuso Mbedu. I know that lead actress category was tight, but that's one of the better lead performances I've seen of the year. Not even Joel Edgerton or William Jackson Harper, who was nominated last year. I had a feeling that it wasn't necessarily towards the top of The Queen's Gambit and Mare of Easttown of the limited genre categories, but to see it shut out of those acting categories was very sad. And same goes for small acts, I think, with John Boyega, who won a Golden Globe, won a Critics' Choice Award, but not even nominated in supporting actor, because they had to make room for 3 Hamilton guys, I guess, which sure, they give great performances, but it's a choice. So those 2 were definitely the biggest oversights of limited series for me.
Yeah, I mean, I can only echo that. I expected at this point the Underground Railroad to underperform in the acting categories. I ended up having it getting no acting nominations, but that doesn't make it any less disappointing. It's just very disappointing to me because think that a lot of people just didn't watch the show. I think a lot of people either didn't watch past the first episode, or they didn't give it a chance at all, or maybe they just got to the third. I don't know. I understand it's heavy material. It's very difficult to get through. It's 10 episodes. They were all released at once. We can talk about that in a second, how that affects shows' chances. But to see no one from the cast embrace is just very devastating. Also, Sheila Atim and Lily Rabe, who's just waiting for her first nomination, and Erin Pierre, and as you said, Tusu Mbedu, just so much deserving talent was left out. And also below the line, someone like Joy McMillan, Oscar nominee for Moonlight, who did an incredible job co-editing this. I was just so disappointed to see her left out. And what's ironic is that a lot of the craftspeople from the Underground Railroad are actually nominated, but for different projects, which just goes to show that probably a lot of people didn't watch it. Justin Hartley, again, I mean, he just can't seem to ever make it here. Fifth time in a row now. I really don't understand it. Chris Sullivan was nominated again, and he's amazing on the show, but I just wish Justin Hartley finally had a chance. He was amazing again this season, and Emmy voters just don't seem to take to his work, which I really don't understand. And this isn't necessarily a major disappointment. It's just what I forgot to mention earlier with shocking snubs, which was Marielle Heller and Bill Camp missing out for the Queen's Gambit. I did not expect that at all, especially Bill Camp with that SAG nomination.
I was always worried he was going to miss because it's a very quiet performance. But I put him in there because everyone kept doing it, but I was like, He
got a SAG nomination for it.
Yeah. But that's definitely true that it was a very small role. It was a very quiet role. But I do think that will make us question how much the SAG Awards are actually relevant when it comes to, or how much they foretell the Emmys, which takes us right to the next topic, which was, what were your biggest takeaways? What did we learn from these nominations about, just whether precursors matter, how much weekly releases and entire drops, so binge watching affected this. What are your main takeaways? Kevin, let's start with you.
Well, I sort of do want to echo what Sam was saying again earlier, with the fact that you really need to have that water cooler appeal to really stand out. And that is very, very apparent in these nominations. But I sort of just wanted to speak to the races themselves in terms of those kinds of takeaways, which is, I think we went into this knowing that The Crown and Ted Lasso and The Queen's Gambit were probably the front runners in all of their respective genres, after really dominating with the winter awards, at least. And we do see that bearing out with nominations. Like, I know some of us were predicting like Emerald Fennell to get in for The Crown, but the fact that she gets in despite very limited screen time she had as Camilla Parker Bowles is a sign that they just absolutely adore that show. And I do think that even with all that love for The Crown, that the love for The Handmaid's Tale proves that it's not going to be like a blowout situation. It's not like obvious that The Crown is going to win. And I also don't think, especially with The Queen's Gambit, as you were mentioning before, with the lack of Bill Camp and the lack of Marielle Heller, that might suggest that something else might be in play there that we weren't expecting, like Mayor of Easttown, or who knows, maybe even WandaVision,
Yeah.
So
3 nominations.
Exactly. Yeah, 3 for writing. So that's a very good sign. And even when you have like I May Destroy You, which gets 9 nominations, but are in very key categories, I think that's another one that can really make that race really, really competitive. So I guess my main takeaway is that these categories we thought were mostly locked up maybe might not be as locked up as they seem.
Yeah. Sam, let's go to you.
Oh, I just think, I kind of already said my biggest takeaway, but it's sort of like it's turning into like sort of the buzziest, squeakiest wheel gets the oil here. It is strange, living in this time where there is just so much content and so much, I think I get emails of things, please watch this all the time. And there's just like this never ending list of shows and TV movies or limited series you have to get through. And it really is, I think, becoming more and more difficult as the TV landscape expands for other things to break through. It makes me wonder if there does need to be, or should there be a change to go back to sort of a juried rule, because right now, without those, jury systems and putting it on the honor system and opening up the voting a little bit more, it is going to be the most popular shows are going to be the ones that get the nominations. And I think we'll see things sort of condense around fewer shows getting nominated. And I don't know if this is a takeaway or just a wish, but I do think the limited series category needs more nominations.
Oh, yes.
I will say the Emmys overall, I think, have done a really good job at constantly adjusting their rules to a very rapidly changing landscape and trying to figure out what is the best method every single year. But I think it's time to expand limited series the same way as drama and comedy. There's only more and more of those shows created each year. When I think if I made my top 10 favorite series this year, I think probably at least 8 of them would be limited series.
Mm-hmm.
And you could easily fill out a top 10 of limited series that would be extremely worthy of that nomination. So that would have gotten its a stint in there, hopefully. So I think next year, let's revisit those rules.
Yeah. Charlie, do you agree with Sam?
I don't like to, but basically,
Rude.
I love you, Sam. I think my main takeaway from today is drama series is way more interesting than I think any of us thought it would be. I think a lot of us thought that The Crown was very much a default thing, but also the weird thing about that is that, The Crown is Netflix, and it feels like at this point the industry is just dicking with Netflix at this point. Like they're just like, it's like in a cartoon when you see someone, they put something in front of them, but it's on a stick, so they think they can reach it, but they can never get it. That's how it feels with Netflix trying to win Best Picture at the Oscars and series and Best Series at the Emmys. Hulu beat them to it, and now Amazon has won for several different ones. And it feels, and at first we were saying, if it can't win for this, what does that mean? And now it's actually a real race with 2 other streaming services. Hulu with The Handmaid's Tale is now has to be viewed as a truly serious contender, and I think The Mandalorian has to be viewed as a serious contender as well, with 24 nominations. I think that, and that's Disney Plus. And can you just imagine what it would be, what the people at Netflix have to be thinking if Disney Plus wins a Best Series award before Netflix does? I mean, that's just that has to be just like, I mean, they have to be like, I don't even know what could be going on there. I'm sure heads might roll at Netflix. Who knows? But
Apple TV Plus is about to win.
Oh yes.
So
and Disney Plus has
Apple TV Plus should have a really good night.
Right. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, this is I really think that drama is so much more interesting than we thought it would be, and that makes, and as an awards watcher, that makes me really happy, because that makes that, it takes something that we thought was, for some of those categories over and done with, and makes it like, oh, okay, now we get to have fun watching the ceremony and overanalyze everything again. And then when the winner goes, we go, oh, well, of course it was going to be that. Why didn't I think of that?
Tale as old as time.
Oh yeah. I mean, we can get into some of our bold predictions or some of our first predictions in just a second, but I do echo everything that has been said. I think the difference between binge watching and weekly drop was incredibly noticeable this year. Something like Mirror v. Sound just gained buzz week after week, and eventually it became this huge hit. And I think that manifested in the nominations. The same goes for The Handmaid's Tale. It was, the first 3 episodes were released all together, but then the other 7 aired week after week, and it was able to build all that buzz. And we saw it worked out, or as opposed to The Underground Railroad, which all 10 episodes of which were released at once. I'll be curious to see how that strategy works in the future, and we'll be able to see that with Netflix in the limited series category, whether The Queen's Gambit is able to still pull it off, even though it aired last fall and all episodes were released at once. It sustained its buzz much longer than most shows do when all episodes are released at once, but I'm curious to see whether it can still pull off a series win. And another takeaway is, again, do not underestimate Ryan Murphy shows in the acting categories. Even if it's just one nomination, Ratched, Sophie Okonedo, she got in. We got Halston, we had Ewan McGregor for Halston, Pose, obviously. When Ryan Murphy has a show, you should probably predict it for at least one acting nomination. The Politician, of course, I believe did not get anything in acting. So that one fell out this time around, but yeah. He remains a strong player in those categories. And finally, we mentioned this already, which was Bill Camp's SAG nomination. Sometimes some of these surprising SAG nominations might not translate. And I think it's important to highlight in this aspect that the SAG nominations are voted by committees consisting of 1,000 to 2,000 people. And when you open up to the entire voting body for the winners, you have two separate worlds. And these are SAG-AFTRA members, and we don't know how many of them are actually Emmy voters. So maybe Bill Camp's SAG nomination really just threw us off, and I'm curious to see how often SAG will do that in the future, because I don't think this will be the first time.
I mean, it should be mentioned that, I mean, the reason that so many people, that was something that a lot of us were so hung up on when it happened and through today's nominations was because the last two times we have it, not only did it result in corresponding Emmy nominations, but it resulted in wins. 2 years ago, we saw that with Julia Garner in Ozark.
Yes.
And then last year, we saw that with Billy Crudup for The Morning Show, which eventually translated to his Emmy win. So it seemed like it was one of those things where it just sort of followed. It was just sort of logic, like, okay, here's this weird, random supporting performance that gets in amongst all these other things. So, it must be something.
Definitely. And I guess one other important thing is when they love you, they really, really love you. We saw a bunch of shows dominate categories: Handmaid's Tale, 4 supporting actresses, 3 supporting actors. We already mentioned Hamilton, how it dominated its categories, especially supporting actor. It's with the unlimited slots on the nominating ballots, voters just check off. When they have a favorite show, they'll just check it off everywhere. And I think we have to just watch out for that. In the coming years, as we have the last few years. But to wrap things up a bit, what is one bold prediction that you would like to make right now, whether it be in series or one of the acting categories? And let's go to Charlie first.
I'm kind of tempted to predict Michaela Cole in lead actress in a limited series or movie. Reason being is I know a lot of the conversation seems to be around, of course, Anya Taylor-Joy and Kate Winslet, understandably. And I think, and this is one of the, but she's right there. It's one of those, she's nominated in several categories. I think that it's just one of those things where I think that because I think there's going to be so much concentration, and it feels like they're just like right neck and neck at each other with Winslet and Joy, that it feels like Michaela Cole could do kind of like what Adrian Brody did at the Oscars when he won, just sort of like come up the middle and with something that is very well respected, and the nomination tally really does reinforce that they really did appreciate this show. And so I think it would be weird if Michaela Cole, do we know how many nominations she actually has? I think she has like 3 or 4, right? Because she's up, I know, at least as a writer. Is she a director on the show as well?
Yes, she's a co-director.
Okay.
And she has one of the nominations for directing. I think it has 2. One of them is hers.
Yeah. So I mean, she's got several nominations. And it's one of those where, it's kind of tough trying to figure out if they want to reward her where is that consensus going to happen? But I think that she actually stands a very good chance in that lead actress category.
Interesting. Sam, do you agree? Or do you have any other shocking or bold predictions you would like to make?
I think Michaela Cole is a great choice to take home an award because she is the show. It is so totally her voice and her idea from top to bottom. And I think when you have that type of figure who's sort of like the auteur and is sort of like the new voice on the scene that is really unique and really different from anything else out there right now, they're bound to reward her somewhere. Again, it's figuring out where is that going to be. Is enough to take down Anya Taylor-Joy? Maybe, but I don't know. My big prediction is I just think Billy Porter is going to take home another Emmy for Pose. I know he was not in first place in our odds before the nominations came out, but if we're talking about buzz is the strongest thing going here, and it's those water cooler moments, like I don't think there's any actor in that drama lead actor category who has had more coverage and more discussion and generated more headlines than Billy this year. And he's been doing it for himself and as sort of like a spokesperson for the show in general. He's become like the figure of the show to the media. And I just think there's a lot of love for him right now. They've embraced Pose in a big way. That so far to really get their out there for this final season. But I do think that we get something. I think it'll be Billy Porter wins lead actor again.
Luca froze, but I guess I'll just go. So I love both of those predictions, by the way. I would love if those two happened. I'm gonna say that drama actress is not quite as locked up as people think it might be for Emma Corrin. I think presence of Olivia Colman might complicate things for her possibly. And I'm wondering, I'm looking at, Elizabeth Moss and I'm looking at MJ Rodriguez, and I'm wondering if one of those two has the possibility of really taking it. As Elizabeth Moss, look at the performance of The Handmaid's Tale. She carries the whole thing as she does every season, but this season in particular was very physical and visceral, and her performance is just it feels like it was more showy this year than like any other season, at least for me. So I think she has a major chance this time. And for MJ, I think she sort of has a little bit of the X Factor Zendaya upside sort of thing, where you could see like a large academy wanting to embrace more of an up and coming actress. It's a very exciting nomination, a buzz making nomination, and she's the heart and soul of Pose, and it's a show that they embraced in this third season. And if this is a really competitive race, then I think she might be able to have enough of that little narrative to push her over the edge. Might be wishful thinking, but the fact that she got in might just be the biggest hurdle for her.
I completely agree. I think that lead actress is more open than it was before the nominations. For the longest time, I was just worried that Elizabeth Moss was not going to get nominated because she didn't get nominated last year, and I was very worried about that. But the fact that Handmaid's Tale just overperformed like that and got in people like Madeline Brewer and Oti Fagbenle, which kind of proves to me that they watched this season. And as you mentioned, if they watch this season, they will have seen that performance. She's never done this type of work on the show. And I think the hurdle for Elizabeth Moss is, will voters want to give her a second lead actress Emmy for this role? We haven't really seen a repeat in this category since I guess Juliana Margulies and Claire Danes were the only ones this past decade, but that was a different voting system. So I'm not sure whether we'll see it in this voting
Juliana
system.
was able to do it with a break in between.
Exactly.
So that is promising for her.
It is. What worries me there is that was a different voting system. We still had the tape system back then, and we just live in different times at the Emmys now. So I'm curious to see, and the same goes for Billy Porter, whether he is able to pull off another win 2 years after his first. especially since his main competition is probably Josh O'Connor, whose show is the series frontrunner as of now. And MJ Rodriguez, I completely agree. The nomination was the hurdle. It took her 3 years to get this nomination. And the fact that she finally made it is a sign that voters were probably paying attention and that they really wanted her to get this. And I predicted Zendaya probably 1.5 months before the nominations last year. And I don't know. I have to see whether I put Emma Corrin at #1 or whether I choose Elizabeth Moss or MJ Rodriguez, because there are certainly arguments to make for them. And I guess another one would be in limited series. I think Mayor of Easttown can definitely win. It got everything it needed. It got all the acting nominations. It got all the below the line nominations, whereas The Queen's Gambit slightly underperformed. And Mayor of Easttown is more recent. So I'll be curious to see if that has an effect. And I do think Kate Winslet can be swept up. I think she can absolutely win lead actress, especially since Anya Taylor-Joy, I don't believe she was nominated for Saturday Night Live, was she?
No.
Yeah, so that, I think an additional nomination for Saturday Night Live would have shown us that there was this surplus of support for her. So that remains a very fluid race with Michaela Cole, also spoiler, as all of you mentioned. Are there any final thoughts before we wrap up here?
It was nice to see a posthumous nomination for Jessica Walter as well in the
Right.
voice acting category. For one last nomination for her for her portrayal of Mallory Archer. It's her first one in the category for that role, and I don't know if she'll take home the win, but it was very nice to see that one last recognition for the amazing talent that she was.
Most certainly.
Yeah.
Well,
I also, speaking of, farewell nominations, I was really glad to see Conan get this
yes.
one last nomination for his show in Variety Talk, which I don't remember the last time he was even nominated for his show. So feels like it's been a decade. So glad to see that. I think that really, the fact that his show ended literally the week that voting happened probably helped him quite a bit, but really nice to give him one last one.
Absolutely. Sam, any final thoughts, or should we
Oh,
call
well,
it?
if we're on the farewell train, then I guess we'll go. It was Charles Dance also managed to get in after, all those years of not getting in for Game of Thrones. So he finally has one last farewell nomination.
Yeah. Well, then thank you so much to the three of you for joining me today and for discussing these nominations. To our viewers, make sure to go to goldderby.com to make your predictions and click subscribe before you leave. Thank you so much.